I am Margaret Johnson, 68 years old this year. I have lived my entire life for my husband and son. It's already been 5 years since my husband passed away. But I wasn't lonely because I have a daughter-in-law I'm proud of. Sarah Williams, my daughter-in-law, who has been married to my son David for 15 years now. At first it was awkward and unfamiliar, but now she feels like my own daughter. Mother, I'll cook today. Please rest comfortably. Sarah would say this every day, taking care of all the household chores. She would wake up without fail at 6 in the morning and carefully prepare lunchboxes for me, her husband, and their daughter Emma. I sat on the living room sofa, watching Sarah move busily around, feeling content. She was about 5 feet 5 inches tall with an appropriate build, always wearing a neat apron that looked so pretty on her. Especially the small dimples that showed when she smiled were impressive. Sarah, don't overdo it. I can help you. Mother, it's okay. You've worked hard your whole life, now it's my turn. We've lived like this for 15 years, having such conversations. I considered Sarah like my real daughter. No, perhaps I cherished her even more than a biological daughter would have been. Sarah was perfect not only in serving me as her mother-in-law, but also in supporting her husband David. Even when David came home late from overtime work, she would have warm food prepared. And she took care of even the smallest details of his clothing. David, it's supposed to rain tomorrow, so take an umbrella. Got it, honey. Thanks. Listening to such conversations between the couple warmed my heart. What could bring more joy to a mother than seeing her son living happily with a good wife? But what moved me most about Sarah was how she treated our daughter Emma. Emma is now 23 years old and a junior in college, and Sarah always cherished her like her own daughter. Emma, did you do well on your test? Should I make something grandmother likes, Mom? What does grandmother like? Grandmother likes dried pollock soup and dried radish leaf miso soup. Whenever I heard such conversations, I felt like I might cry. To think that my daughter-in-law remembered even her mother-in-law's taste preferences. It was truly something to be grateful for. I wanted to express my gratitude to Sarah, so I secretly started putting money into a savings account. 500,000 won every month, faithfully for 3 years. It was money I saved little by little from my allowance without Sarah knowing. I'll give this money to Sarah when she's in a difficult situation later. With that thought, I continued depositing into the savings account. The account already had 18 million won accumulated. It was a large sum for me, but I wanted to give it to Sarah. But something strange happened. From a few days ago, Sarah's behavior seemed a little different. She would go into her room and close the door when answering phone calls, or when going out. She wouldn't explain in detail where she was going. Sarah, where are you going? Oh, I'm just going to meet a friend briefly. Before, she would tell me which friend she was meeting and what they were doing and where. But lately there had been no such talk. But I didn't pay much attention to it. I thought my daughter-in-law needed her own time too. This morning also started no differently than usual. Sarah got up at dawn to prepare breakfast, and I was watching the morning news in the living room. Mother, please have breakfast. Thank you, Sarah. As I received the breakfast that Sarah had carefully prepared, I thought again. How fortunate I was to have this daughter-in-law today. I didn't know then. I had no idea that the biggest betrayal of my life was approaching. Right before my eyes. That day was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Sarah had gone out to meet a friend, and David said he had to work late at the company. Emma also said she'd be home late due to school assignments. Being alone at home, I felt bored and decided to go to the bank after a long time. I wanted to organize my savings account and check how much money had accumulated to give to Sarah. It took about 10 minutes to walk to the neighborhood bank. The afternoon sunlight was warm, so I walked slowly as if taking a stroll. When I arrived at the bank and took a number, I felt excited. It must be over 18 million won. How happy will Sarah be? When my turn came, I went to the counter. The teller was a young woman who appeared to be in her late 20s. It wasn't Ms. Kim whom I usually saw, but a face I'd never seen before. How may I help you? I came to check my savings balance. I left the bank book at home. I handed over my ID and told her the account number. The employee looked at the computer and made a strange expression. I'm sorry, but this account shows as already closed. What? What did you say? I couldn't believe my ears. Closed? When did I close it? When was it closed? It was closed last Thursday. You came in person to close it. That can't be right. I never came to the bank last Thursday. My voice got louder. Other customers started looking at me. The employee looked at the computer again with a flustered expression. Perhaps a family member came as a proxy. Would you like to check the CCTV? At the mention of CCTV, I nodded. Something seemed wrong. The employee called the manager, explained the situation, and after a moment I was guided to a small room. This is the footage from last Thursday around 2 p.m. When the manager turned on the monitor, black and white footage appeared. The quality wasn't very good, but you could clearly make out people's appearances. And at that moment, I couldn't believe my eyes. The person on the screen was Sarah. She was wearing a black long coat and a mask, but that build and walking style was definitely Sarah. How could I not recognize her after living together for 15 years? Is this the person who came to close the account? The manager asked. My mouth was completely dry and I couldn't speak. My throat felt parched. Yes, that's right. I barely managed to answer. Sarah had closed my account. But why? She brought her ID and entered the password correctly. So we confirmed her identity and processed the closure. She even knew the password? I had never told that password to anyone. Oh, wait, I remembered once using the ATM in front of Sarah. Sarah was standing behind me then. So what happened to the money? She withdrew it all in cash. 18.2 million won in total cash. 18.2 million won. It was the money I had saved penny by penny for 3 years. The money I had saved to give to Sarah. Sarah had secretly taken it. The walk from the bank to home had never felt this long. My legs felt weak and I had to sit on benches several times to rest. Why? Why Sarah? My head was complicated. I couldn't understand why Sarah, who had served me like her own mother for 15 years, would steal my money. When I arrived home, the sun was already setting. Sarah hadn't come home yet, and David was still working late. Only Emma was at home doing homework. Grandmother, where did you go? You don't look well. No, I'm fine. Emma, I tried to act nonchalant. I couldn't tell Emma about this. I thought it wouldn't be good for my young granddaughter to get involved in conflicts between family members. That night when Sarah came home, I pretended to be asleep on purpose. I didn't want to make eye contact with Sarah. I didn't know what expression I should look at her with. Mother, are you sleeping? Sarah slightly opened my room door and asked. I held my breath and pretended to be asleep. Sleep well. I'll make something delicious for you tomorrow. I heard the door close. Hearing those words, my heart ached so much. The daughter-in-law who had been so affectionate to me all my life had stolen my money behind my back. That night I couldn't sleep a wink. I kept thinking while staring at the ceiling. Why did Sarah do such a thing? If she really needed money, she could have just told me. Around 4 a.m., I finally made one decision. I wouldn't confront Sarah immediately, but would watch her a little more. Maybe there were circumstances I didn't know about, but in one corner of my heart, I already knew. The person called Sarah Williams that I had known all this time had been wearing a mask. The next morning, Sarah acted no differently than usual. She got up at dawn to prepare breakfast and greeted me affectionately. Mother, did you sleep well? Today I made seaweed soup that you like. Thank you. I barely managed to answer. I couldn't look directly at Sarah's face. The face that had seemed so lovely until yesterday now felt strange to me. Sarah didn't seem to notice the change in my expression. Or maybe she wasn't noticing on purpose, but pretending not to know. David, you worked hard with overtime yesterday? Come home early today. Got it, honey. Mother, I'm leaving for work. David greeted me and left. Emma also went to school, leaving only Sarah and me at home. Mother, the weather is nice today. Shall we air out the blankets? Yes, do that. Watching Sarah hanging blankets on the balcony, I had complicated feelings. Did that person really take my money? Maybe I saw it wrong? But CCTV footage doesn't lie. That build, that walking style, it was definitely Sarah. When lunchtime came, Sarah again carefully prepared the meal. Kimchi stew with grilled fish and vegetable side dishes. Everything was the same as usual. Mother, you don't have an appetite? You're not eating much. No, it's delicious. My stomach is just a bit off. Are you sick somewhere? Should we go to the hospital? Sarah's worried voice sounded genuine. Was she really worried, or was she acting? I could no longer tell the difference. In the afternoon, Sarah said she was going out. Mother, I'm going to the mart. Do you need anything? No. Be careful. After Sarah left, I went into her room. In 15 years of living together, this was the first time I'd done such a thing. A mother-in-law secretly searching her daughter-in-law's room. I felt pathetic, but I wanted to know the truth. Why Sarah did such a thing, where she used that money. The room was neatly organized. On the dressing table, Sarah's usual cosmetics were arranged orderly, and the closet was also tidy. I opened the drawers one by one, but there was nothing special. But in the bottom drawer of the dressing table, I found something strange. It was a luxury shopping bag. A department store designer brand bag. The price tag was still attached. $3,800. I was shocked. When did Sarah buy such an expensive bag? Usually Sarah was frugal. She said she wasn't interested in luxury goods. There was another box next to it. When I opened it, it was a gold necklace. This also seemed to be quite expensive. This was all bought with my money. My chest felt tight. Sarah had bought luxury goods with the money I had saved penny by penny. Had my thinking of her as a frugal daughter-in-law all been a lie? Then I heard the front door opening. Sarah had returned. I quickly closed the drawer and left the room. Mother, I'm back. I bought fresh fruit. Okay, good work. Sarah still had a bright expression. But to my eyes, that smile looked fake. How could she be so calm? When evening came, David came home. Emma also returned from school, and the whole family gathered for dinner. Grandmother, today they announced the scholarship recipients in our department. I received one. Really? Our Emma. That's wonderful. I was genuinely happy about Emma's news. My granddaughter studying hard and even receiving a scholarship. Emma, congratulations. Mom will make something delicious for you. Sarah also congratulated Emma, but now everything looked like acting to me. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Thinking that Sarah was sleeping in the room next to mine made me uncomfortable. What have I been seeing for 15 years? Who is the real Sarah? Around 2 a.m., I got up to go to the bathroom. Passing through the hallway, I heard a small voice from Sarah's room. It sounded like a phone conversation. Listening through the door crack, Sarah was talking to someone on the phone. Yeah, I bought it with that money. Mother-in-law still doesn't know. Yeah, it's okay. She's such a kind person, how could she suspect? Let's meet again tomorrow and talk. At that moment, my whole body trembled. Sarah knew she had taken my money, but was treating me like a fool. I couldn't listen anymore and returned to my room. I wanted to bury my face in the pillow and cry, but tears wouldn't come. Instead, one emotion was slowly growing in my heart. Anger. And a desire for revenge. Now let's find out who the real Sarah is. I made up my mind. It seemed like the time had come to properly see the true face of the daughter-in-law who had lived wearing a mask for 15 years. The next morning, I got up earlier than usual. It was to confirm Sarah's true nature. I couldn't sleep after hearing that phone conversation last night. Sarah was still getting up at 6 a.m. to prepare breakfast. But now all those actions looked different to me. They felt like acting. Mother, you're up early. Are you feeling all right? Yes, I couldn't sleep. You haven't been sleeping well lately. Should we go to the hospital? Sarah's worried voice didn't sound the same as before. It didn't seem sincere. After David left for work and Emma went to school, Sarah said, Mother, I'm meeting friends today. I'll go out around lunchtime and come back. Okay, be careful. After Sarah left, I decided to secretly follow her. I never thought I'd do such a thing in 15 years of living together, but I had to know the truth. Sarah left the house and took a bus. I also got on the same bus following her. Fortunately, Sarah didn't notice me. The bus headed toward the downtown area. Sarah got off in an area where luxury cafes were gathered. I also got off a few stops later and carefully followed. The place Sarah entered was quite an expensive cafe in downtown. A place where a cup of coffee costs nearly $10. I watched from across the building. After a while, Sarah's friends appeared. 3 women who seemed to be around Sarah's age. They were all dressed flashily and carrying designer bags. I could see their figures through the cafe's glass window. I couldn't hear their conversation due to the distance, but something seemed suspicious just from their expressions. Sarah seemed to be showing off the new designer bag she had bought. She was carrying that $3,800 bag I had seen yesterday. Her friends were admiring it, touching the bag. But I sensed something strange in their expressions. When Sarah explained something, her friends clapped and laughed. That laughter seemed somehow mocking. After about an hour, I decided to get closer. Since I couldn't enter the cafe, I sat on a nearby bench and waited for them to come out. Around 3 p.m., Sarah and her friends came out of the cafe. They moved to a nearby park. I followed from a distance. I could start to hear their conversation as they sat on a park bench. I hid behind a tree and listened carefully. Sarah, you're really amazing. Buying designer goods with your mother-in-law's money. Right, I'd be too scared to do that. It's okay. Our mother-in-law is so kind she doesn't even suspect. The 15 years of acting like a good daughter-in-law paid off. At that moment, I couldn't believe my ears. Acting like a good daughter-in-law? But how much money was there? Over 18 million won. I wanted to withdraw it little by little because it seemed wasteful to take it all at once, but since it was a savings account, I had to close it all at once. Wow, jackpot. What else are you going to buy with that money? I'm looking at necklaces and rings. Anyway, mother-in-law doesn't look at receipts or anything, so it's fine. My whole body was shaking. Not only had Sarah taken my money, but she was bragging about it to her friends. But what if you get caught? I won't get caught. Our mother-in-law rarely goes to the bank, and she'd never dream that I would do such a thing. Because you've built trust over 15 years. Right, I've suffered so much all this time. Getting up at dawn to cook, doing laundry. It's time to get some compensation. One of her friends said worriedly. Still, be careful, if there are problems later. It's fine, our mother-in-law is too kind to even think that her daughter-in-law stole her money. And, Sarah paused for a moment and continued. Honestly, I've suffered enough for 15 years too. Serving my mother-in-law, supporting my husband. Taking this much is natural, isn't it? Right, being a daughter-in-law serving a mother-in-law is so hard. Exactly, our Sarah really suffered. Listening to their conversation, I felt like my heart was being torn apart. The daughter-in-law I had loved for 15 years had been thinking of me this way. Even more shocking was Sarah's next words. Actually, it was planned from the beginning. Since mother-in-law is so simple-minded, I thought if I just acted like a good daughter-in-law, I could receive all the inheritance later. Wow, Sarah is really smart. Investing 15 years and getting the house and inheritance would be a jackpot. But what does your husband say? David doesn't know anything. He's so naive. He's someone who would only take mom's side. I couldn't listen anymore. My legs gave out and I collapsed onto the bench. Everything I had seen for 15 years had been lies. Sarah's love for me, her sacrifice for the family, everything had been calculated acting. From the beginning, she had approached me targeting my assets. Then Sarah and her friends started walking toward me. I quickly hid behind the tree. Fortunately, they didn't see me. Well, let's go now. Sarah, let's meet again next time and go shopping. Yeah, today was really fun. After they parted ways, I sat in that spot for a long time. My head was complicated. Anger, betrayal, and emptiness were all mixed together. But at the same time, one resolution formed. I couldn't just be a victim like this. If Sarah had deceived me for 15 years, now was the time for me to reveal her true face to the world. On the way home, I began making plans. How could I remove Sarah's mask? How could I achieve justice? I thought it was time to make her pay for the betrayal I had suffered for 15 years. When I returned home, I tried to calm my mind. But the conversation between Sarah and her friends kept echoing in my head. The 15-year acting, that it was planned from the beginning. Around 5 p.m., Sarah came back. Mother, I'm back. I had coffee with friends. Okay, did you have fun? Yes, it was nice meeting them after a long time. Seeing Sarah's bright expression made me even angrier. The face that had been laughing and treating me like a fool just moments ago was now acting like a good daughter-in-law again. Mother, what would you like for dinner? Anything is fine. You decide. I answered coldly on purpose. I wondered if Sarah would notice, but she didn't show any particular reaction. David came home from work, and Emma returned from school for dinner. Looking at Sarah at the dinner table, she was so natural that it was actually scary. To think she had been acting this perfectly for 15 years. "Grandmother, you've seemed to be in a bad mood lately. Are you sick somewhere?" Emma asked worriedly. I didn't want to cause my granddaughter such worry. "No, Emma. Grandmother is fine." "Grandmother, if there's anything troubling you, please tell me. I'll help you." Emma's warm words almost made me cry. It seemed like Emma was the only person in this house who truly loved me. Late that night, I went to Emma's room and carefully brought up the topic. "Emma, grandmother has something to ask you." "Yes, grandmother. Ask me anything." "Your mom, don't you think she's been a bit different lately?" Emma thought for a moment and then nodded. "Actually, I've been feeling that way too. Lately mom goes into her room and closes the door when answering phone calls. She didn't used to do that. Is there anything else? And a few days ago I think mom bought an expensive bag. I saw it in her room and it still had the price tag. It was really expensive." Emma had noticed too. Her words made me even more certain. "Emma, do you know anything about your mom's past? What kind of person she was before marriage?" "Well, mom doesn't talk much about her past. She barely contacts her family either." Then I thought I should investigate Sarah's past directly. The next day, while Sarah was out, I looked for her personal documents. Things like resident registration copies and graduation certificates. Looking at Sarah's resident registration copy, there was something strange. Her address before marriage had changed several times. Normally, a person wouldn't move around this frequently. Among them, one address caught my eye. It was a luxury apartment address in Manhattan, New York. Would Sarah have had the financial means to live in such a place? I made a note of that address. I thought I should check it out later. A few days later, I went to that apartment complex with Emma. I told Emma we were going for a walk. "Grandmother, why did we come here?" "Just wanted to look around." I asked an employee at the apartment management office. "Do you know someone named Sarah Williams? She lived here a few years ago." "Sarah Williams? Oh, that person. I remember." The management office employee made a complicated expression. "What are you looking for her for?" "She's my daughter-in-law. I'm trying to organize family history." "Ah, that person had some problems. She was almost evicted for not paying rent. But even before that," the employee looked around and said in a small voice, "when she lived here, she became close with an elderly lady upstairs. But after that lady suddenly passed away, a large sum of money disappeared from the lady's account." I was shocked. "Really?" "Yes, the lady's family suspected it but there was no evidence. After that, Ms. Williams moved away. On the way back, I was in shock. What Sarah did to me wasn't the first time. She had done the same thing to another elderly person." "Grandmother, are you okay? You don't look well." "I'm fine, Emma. Just a little tired." Even after returning home, that story wouldn't leave my mind. Sarah had been someone who planned such things from the beginning. I was just another target for her. That night, Sarah greeted me as usual. "Mother, sleep early. I'll make delicious seaweed soup for you tomorrow morning." At that moment, I made a decision. I could no longer watch Sarah's acting. I had to reveal the truth and achieve justice. "Sarah, thank you. I'm so happy because of you." I also began acting. If Sarah had deceived me for 15 years, now it was my turn to deceive her. Sarah smiled brightly at my words. But I now knew all the truth hidden behind that smile. The war had begun. The time had come to make her pay for the betrayal I had suffered for 15 years. From the next day, I began collecting evidence in earnest. To punish Sarah legally, I needed solid evidence. First, I went to the bank to formally request the CCTV footage. When I explained the situation to the person in charge, they cooperated. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to hear about this incident. We can copy the footage for you." "Thank you. And could you check if there were similar incidents at other banks? If you have ID and account information, we can look that up for you." Since I knew Sarah's ID number, it was possible. The search results revealed shocking facts. Sarah had also tried to take out loans in my name at other banks. Fortunately, they weren't approved due to incomplete documents, but I could see how meticulous her plan was. This woman, really. I suppressed my anger and returned home. At home, Emma was waiting for me. Grandmother, I briefly looked at Mom's phone. What did you see? I saw Mom exchanging texts with someone. The content was strange. Emma took out a memo paper. She had written down the content of Sarah's texts. When will you decide on the next target? This case should be fine for a while, but be careful. Elderly people these days aren't like before. They're becoming more suspicious. I know. Still, the 15-year investment was worth it. Next time let's finish in a shorter period. My whole body trembled. Sarah was doing this systematically with other people. Emma, how did you see this? When Mom was showering, her phone was in the living room. A text came and it appeared on the screen. Good job, Emma, but don't tell anyone about this. Especially not your dad. Yes, grandmother. But is Mom really doing bad things? Tears formed in Emma's eyes. Even though she was a stepmother, they had lived together for 15 years, so this incident must be shocking for Emma too. Emma, grandmother will solve everything, so don't worry. I hugged Emma and made a resolution. I didn't want this child to get involved in such matters. That afternoon, Sarah said she was going out again. Mother, I'm going to the mart. Okay, be careful. After Sarah left, I searched her room again. This time I looked more thoroughly. Deep in the closet, I found a small notebook. When I opened it, there were names and contact information of various people, along with brief notes. Kim, 72 years old, lives alone, high pension income, easy access. Park, 68 years old, son lives overseas, very lonely, needs trust building. Lee, 75 years old, early dementia, family indifference, easy target. And on the last page, my name was there too. Margaret Johnson, 68 years old, mother-in-law, 15-year investment, successfully completed, additional work needed. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the notebook. To Sarah, I was just a target. All the relationships over 15 years had been lies. I photographed the notebook with my phone as evidence. Then I put it back in its original place. When evening came and the whole family gathered, David still seemed to know nothing. Mom, there was good news at work today. I made the promotion candidate list. Really? David, that's wonderful. Sarah seemed genuinely happy, but I now knew all those emotions were fake. Son, congratulations. Your hard work paid off. Thank you, Mom. It's all thanks to you. David greeted me, my innocent son. He has no idea what kind of person his wife is. That night, I called a law office. It was for legal action. Hello. I'd like a consultation about fraud and theft cases. Yes, if tomorrow morning works for you, please come to the office. The next morning, I went to the lawyer's office with Emma. A young female lawyer provided the consultation. In your case, this clearly constitutes fraud and theft. Especially since it's a crime using family relationships, the punishment could be heavier. How should we proceed? First, file a complaint at the police station. The evidence you have should be sufficient for charges to be filed. Hearing the lawyer's words, I steeled my resolve. Now was the time to begin the war with Sarah in earnest. But there's one more thing I want to confirm. Are there other victims too? That would be revealed during the investigation. If she did this systematically, it could become a bigger problem. Coming out of the lawyer's office, I said to Emma, Emma, this is really the beginning now. Will you trust grandmother and follow me? Yes, grandmother. I can't believe Mom did such things either. But I'll help you. At that moment, I was truly grateful that there was someone in this world who truly loved me. On the way home, I made my final plan. Rather than reporting Sarah immediately, I decided to give her a chance first. A chance to confess and admit her wrongdoing on her own. But if Sarah continued to lie until the end, then I was determined to take legal action without mercy. That evening, while Sarah was preparing dinner as usual, I called her from the living room. Sarah, come here for a moment. Yes, Mother. What is it? Sarah approached me still wearing her apron. She still looked like a good daughter-in-law. Sit down. Mother has something to say. Sarah sat next to me. I looked directly into her eyes. Sarah, it's been 15 years since we've lived together, hasn't it? Yes, Mother. It's already been that long. I've been really grateful all this time. Thanks to you, I wasn't lonely. Mother, Why are you suddenly saying such things? Sarah seemed flustered. I continued speaking. But, is there anything you're hiding from Mother? At that moment, Sarah's expression changed slightly. But she quickly returned to normal. Hiding something? What do you mean? You seem a bit different lately. I wondered if you might have some worries. Oh, Mother, I'm fine. Nothing's wrong. Sarah was still lying. Even at this moment, she wouldn't stop acting. Really? That's good then. But Sarah, I paused for a moment and continued. If you ever need money, tell Mother. You understand? We're not strangers, we're family. Sarah's face hardened for a moment. She seemed to think I had noticed something. Mother, I'm really fine. Don't worry. All right, I understand. Then continue preparing dinner. After Sarah returned to the kitchen, I sighed. She was lying until the very end. I thought there was no need to give her any more chances. Late that night, Emma and I made our final preparations. Grandmother, will you really be okay? Dad will be very shocked when he finds out. Emma, knowing the truth is important. Your dad will understand someday. I held Emma's hand and said, tomorrow everything will be over. Trust grandmother. Tomorrow was finally the day to reveal the truth. The day when the tower of lies built over 15 years would crumble. The day of reckoning finally arrived. I had been steeling myself since early morning. Today was the day to reveal the truth that had been hidden for 15 years. At breakfast time, with the whole family gathered, I spoke up. Let's have a family meeting tonight. I have something important to discuss. David looked up. Mom, what's going on? I'll talk about it tonight. Sarah must attend too. Sarah had an anxious expression. But she still pretended nothing was wrong. Yes, Mother, I understand. All day long, the atmosphere in the house was strangely tense. Sarah moved around more busily than usual, and I made my final preparations. In the afternoon, I went to the police station to explain the situation in advance. Ma'am, you have sufficient evidence. If you get a confession tonight, you can file the formal complaint tomorrow. What if she denies everything until the end? Even so, the evidence is clear, so there won't be any problem with filing charges. However, since it's a family matter, giving one more chance might be. Yes, I'll do that. At 7 p.m., the whole family gathered in the living room. David still looked like he didn't know what was happening, and Emma sat next to me looking nervous. Sarah sat at the end of the sofa, anxious. So what's this about, Mom? David asked. I slowly opened my mouth. David and Sarah, an important problem has arisen in our family. What problem? Sarah asked in a trembling voice. Sarah, you know well. About my savings account. At that moment, Sarah's face turned white. David didn't understand the situation. Mom, what about savings? David, your wife secretly closed my savings account and took 18.2 million won. What did you say? David looked at Sarah in shock. Sarah still wasn't saying anything. Sarah, last Thursday at 2 p.m., you went to the bank and closed my account, right? Mother, that's not what. Then how do you explain the bank CCTV? I took out the CCTV footage from my phone and showed it. The screen clearly showed Sarah withdrawing money from the bank. Are you going to say this isn't you either? David looked at the footage and was horrified. Honey, is this really true? Mom's money. David, I didn't want to believe it at first either. I thought Sarah, who had sacrificed for us for 15 years, couldn't do such a thing. I continued speaking, but the evidence is too clear. And I took out photos of Sarah's notebook. I found this in your room too. Information about various elderly people is written here, and I'm also listed as a target. Only then did Sarah speak up. Mother, Sarah, don't make excuses now. I heard everything you bragged to your friends about. That you acted like a good daughter-in-law for 15 years, that your mother-in-law was a fool and easy to deceive. David was in shock. Honey, is this really true? You stole Mom's money? David, I'm sorry. I had no choice. Sarah finally confessed. No choice? You deceived me for 15 years and that was no choice? I suppressed my anger and said, Sarah? You approached us from the beginning targeting our assets, didn't you, Mother? I had to survive too. David's income wasn't enough. Then you should have been honest. Why did you deceive us with lies for 15 years? David shouted at Sarah. Honey, How could you do this? What did you think of Mom? David, you don't know how hard it is to serve a mother-in-law. If it was hard, you could have left. Why did you steal Mom's money? The family's voices got louder and louder. Emma was crying. Grandmother, did Mom really do such a thing? Emma, I'm sorry that you have to see this. I hugged Emma and continued, Sarah, I'll ask one last time. There are other victims too, aren't there? I heard about the elderly lady upstairs in your previous apartment. Sarah hung her head. Mother, I'm really sorry. Sorry? You deceived us for 15 years, stole my money, and deceived other elderly people too. And it ends with sorry. I stood up and said, Sarah, I'm filing a complaint at the police station tomorrow. You have to pay for what you did. Mother, please, just give me one chance. I'll pay it all back. Pay it back now? Can you also pay back the 15 years of lies? David said to Sarah, honey, we need to get divorced. I can't live with someone like this anymore. David, please, think of Emma. I'm thinking of Emma. That's why we need to divorce. Our daughter can't grow up under a mother like this. That night was really long. Sarah kept asking for forgiveness, but she had already crossed an irreversible river. The next morning, Sarah packed her bags and left the house. It was the moment when 15 years of false married life came to an end. Mother, I was truly sorry. Making her final farewell, Sarah bowed her head. But I had no more sympathy to give her. Sarah, you're only now feeling the weight of what you did. It's too late, but after Sarah disappeared, the house became quiet. But my heart felt much lighter. The 15 years of lies had finally ended. A week passed since Sarah left. I filed the complaint at the police station, and the investigation began. It was revealed that there were several other victims as well. The house was quieter than before, but strangely peaceful. I no longer had to hear fake laughter. David had a very hard time for the first few days. Mom, I was blind to believe such a person and live with her for 15 years. David, it's not your fault. That woman was very cunning. Still, I caused harm to you, Mom. I'm really sorry. David bowed his head in front of me. I patted my son's shoulder. It's okay, son. Now that we know the truth, that's what matters. Emma was also shocked at first, but gradually came to accept the situation. Grandmother, I should have suspected Mom. I'm sorry. Emma, what did you do wrong? Rather, thanks to you helping, we were able to reveal the truth. From now on, Grandmother is all we need. We'll protect Grandmother. Emma's words almost brought tears to my eyes. How fortunate I am to have such a granddaughter. A month later, the court contacted us. Sarah's trial date had been set. On the trial day, I went to the courtroom with Emma. Sarah no longer looked like her former self. She appeared gaunt and miserable. Defendant Sarah Williams is charged with defrauding 18.2 million won from her mother-in-law Margaret Johnson from 2019 to 2024. Using trust over 5 years, and with defrauding a total of 45 million won from 3 other victims. Hearing the prosecutor's words, I realized anew how big Sarah's crime was. Not only me, but other elderly people had been harmed too. Defendant, do you admit to the charges? Yes, I admit, Sarah answered in a small voice. Do you have anything to say to victim Margaret Johnson? The judge asked. Sarah looked at me. Mother, I'm truly sorry. I deceived you for 15 years and betrayed you while receiving love. I know I can never be forgiven even if I die. But I'm truly sorry, Sarah said while crying. But I was no longer fooled by those tears. If the victim has anything to say, please speak. I stood up and said, Your Honor, I loved the defendant like my own daughter for 15 years. But to her, I was just someone to exploit. I composed myself and continued. The defendant's crime goes beyond simple financial damage and destroyed a family. My son was deeply hurt learning that his 15-year marriage was a lie. And my granddaughter was shocked to learn that the person she believed was her mother was a criminal. The courtroom became quiet, but I realized something through this incident. Who my real family is, what real love is. From now on, I will live happily with my real family. A few weeks later, the verdict came down. Sarah was sentenced to 3 years in prison with 5 years probation. She was also ordered to pay full restitution for the damages. As Sarah left the courtroom, she looked at me one last time. but I turned my head away. It was truly over with her now. On the way home, Emma said, "Grandmother, is it really over now?" "Yes, Emma, it's really over now. Grandmother, you're really amazing. To have been deceived for 15 years but still reveal the truth in the end." Emma, grandmother was scared at first too. But I couldn't give up on justice. That evening, the whole family gathered for a quiet meal. It wasn't as fancy as before, but it was a warm time just for our real family. "Mom, let's live well together from now on." David said, "Yes, son, we have each other." Emma also held my hand. "Grandmother, I'll protect you too. So no one can deceive grandmother anymore." At that moment, I realized something. One day with real family is more precious than 15 years of false relationships. Most of the money Sarah stole was recovered. But I gained something even greater. The preciousness of real family and the courage to protect myself. Now I'm starting a new life at 68. The times I saved and endured for my daughter-in-law for 15 years. Now I'll live for myself, for my real family. Sometimes I might be betrayed, but not losing courage and continuing to seek the truth. That's the most precious lesson I learned through this incident. Looking in the mirror, I said to myself, "Margaret Johnson, now live your real life. At 68, it's not too late yet. From now on is the real beginning of my life."